When an elderly man's urgent request to access his own money was blocked by rigid corporate policies, few could have foreseen a 7-foot-1-inch NBA legend stepping in as his unexpected hero. What followed was truly unexpected. The glass doors of First Capital Bank shuddered as Walter Thompson was escorted toward the exit, his cane scraping against marble floors. At 78, he never imagined he'd be treated like a security threat. "Sir, I've explained this repeatedly," the teller's voice sliced through the lobby's hush. "Without updated digital identification, we cannot access your account." Walter's dignity crumbled with each word. "Please, I've banked here 30 years. Miss Sarah knew me." His arthritic fingers fumbled with a stack of documents, utility bills, veteran's card, social security letter, watching helplessly as they scattered across the floor. The security guards blocked other customers from helping. "Sir, you're causing a disturbance." "My wife's medication." Walter's voice cracked. "The pharmacy closes at 5. I just need my pension. It's right there in my account." Through the windows, pedestrians slowed, phones emerging to record the scene. Inside, customers shifted uncomfortably. A mother shielded her child's eyes, while an elderly woman clutched her pearls, muttering, "This isn't right." As Walter stood outside the bank, his scattered papers told only part of his story. Each document represented chapters of a life devoted to service, yet none could help him access his own money. The stakes were painfully clear. His wife Margaret's oncologist had changed her medication that morning. The new prescription cost $486 and needed to be filled before Anderson's drugstore closed at 5 p.m., just 2 hours away. "Mr. Thompson," Rebecca Stevens, the bank's new manager, emerged from her office. At 34, she'd been fast-tracked through National Financial Group's corporate program, earning this position during the recent merger. Her reputation for implementing security protocols had made her a rising star. "Miss Stevens." Walter straightened his spine, muscle memory from decades of coaching basketball. "Every teller here used to know me by name. I've banked here since 1989. Rebecca led him to her office, a glass cube of modern efficiency, the security guards hovering nearby as Walter followed, leaning on his cane. "Mr. Thompson," she began, her fingers flying across the keyboard, "you haven't completed the mandatory digital verification upgrade. We've sent 4 notices about these changes." "Those blue letters," Walter's voice softened. "Margaret tried helping me with the computer part, but..." He paused. "The chemotherapy takes so much out of her." Rebecca glanced at her screen, where security protocols flashed red. The bank's new system, implemented during the merger, demanded enhanced digital verification, 2-factor authentication, biometric scanning, smartphone registration. No exceptions. "The merger brought necessary security upgrades," she explained, her tone professionally distant. "Without proper digital verification, we can't authenticate your identity under new federal guidelines. These measures protect seniors from fraud." Walter's hands tightened on his cane. "I have my driver's license, veteran ID, even my original account documents from '89. That proves who I am. Physical ID isn't sufficient anymore." She turned her monitor, displaying the requirements: smartphone with banking app, digital ID verification, biometric registration, 2-factor authentication, digital signature enrollment. "I don't have a smartphone," Walter's voice cracked. "Margaret and I share a flip phone. It was enough until today." Rebecca's fingers tensed. The morning's email from corporate burned in her mind. 0 exceptions to security protocols. Violations will result in immediate review of management positions. Her job, mortgage, future, all hinged on perfect compliance. "Perhaps a family member could help with the digital verification," she suggested, knowing it would take days. Walter's eyes met hers, heavy with years of wisdom and worry. "My son's stationed in Germany. Margaret's sister flies in next week to help with her care, but..." He placed the prescription slip on her desk. "This can't wait." The red warning banner across Walter's account was unmistakable. Unstable, unverified account access restricted. Decades of careful savings and regular deposits meant nothing against the bank's digital wall. The lobby had grown hushed, customers watching through the glass office. Many knew Walter, the coach who'd bought uniforms for kids who couldn't afford them, who'd written college recommendations and attended graduations years after his students left his team. The clock ticked ruthlessly toward 5 p.m., each moment bringing Margaret's medication deadline closer. Rebecca stood, her decision made. Moments later, Walter found himself on a bench near the bank's side entrance, shoulders shaking with quiet sobs. That's when Shaquille O'Neal and his teenage daughter Miara arrived. "Dad, look," Miara whispered, tugging her father's sleeve. The sight stopped them both. An elderly man crying outside a bank in broad daylight, papers scattered at his feet, medical prescriptions, bank statements, and old photographs spilling from a worn wallet. Shaq's 7 feet 1 inch frame cast a shadow over the scene. "Sir, are you okay?" His deep voice was gentle, contrasting with his imposing presence. Walter looked up, hastily wiping his eyes. "I'm sorry," he managed, gathering his documents. "My wife Margaret needs her medication, the new cancer treatment, and they won't—" His voice cracked as he gestured toward the bank. Miara knelt, helping collect the papers. She picked up a photograph, a team picture from Millbrook High's championship season. "Dad, look, he's Coach Thompson. They were talking about him at the camp today." Shaq's expression shifted as recognition dawned. The stories he'd heard about a coach who'd never turned away a child who couldn't afford to play, who'd worked multiple jobs to keep youth programs running. They were all about this man. "4 decades of banking here," Walter said, voice barely above a whisper. "Now they treat me like I'm nobody because I can't use their smartphone app." Miara scanned the bank's online policies on her phone. "Dad, this isn't right. They can't just—" Before she could finish, Shaq had made his decision. Having lost his sister to cancer, the mention of treatment struck a personal chord. He extended his hand to Walter. "Coach Thompson, let's go back in there together," Shaq said, helping Walter up. "Sometimes people need a reminder that behind every policy there's a person." The bank lobby fell silent as they entered. The NBA legend, the teenager with her phone recording, and the elderly coach whose dignity seemed to return with each step. Phones emerged from pockets, social media already buzzing with the unfolding story. Rebecca Stevens froze mid-stride at her office door. The power dynamic shifted instantly. This wasn't just about digital banking anymore. It had become a moral reckoning for an institution that had lost its humanity in the rush toward modernization. "Ms. Stevens," Shaq's voice carried the same intensity he'd brought to championship games. "I think we need to discuss what banking really means to a community." Rebecca's tablet trembled slightly. "Mr. O'Neal, while I appreciate your concern, there are federal regulations that we simply cannot—" "Let me stop you right there." Shaq's 7 feet 1 inch frame seemed to fill the entire office. "I sit on the board of multiple banks. I've been involved in countless mergers. When you talk about federal regulations, I know exactly what they say and what they don't." The bank employees gathered at the periphery paled. Their Monday afternoon had become a high-stakes courtroom drama, with Shaq serving as both judge and jury. "Tell me something," Shaq continued, pulling out his phone. "Coach Thompson's history. 43 years, never an overdraft, regular deposits, consistent patterns. Are they not enough to confirm his identity?" Miara captured the stark contrast between her father's smartphone and Walter's worn passbook, progress versus humanity playing out in real time. "You're wasting this man's precious time because a computer says so." Shaq's voice dropped lower, heavy with personal experience. "I know what it means to watch time slip away while bureaucracy moves at its own pace. Every minute we argue about apps and digital signatures, Coach Thompson's wife waits for medication she needs to live." Rebecca's tablet slipped. "Sir, I understand the emotional aspect, but do you?" Shaq straightened to his full height, and several employees stepped back. "From where I'm standing, and I'm standing pretty tall, I see an institution that's forgotten its purpose. Banking isn't just about securing money, it's about securing trust." He gestured toward the lobby where customers pressed against the glass walls, phones recording. "Every person out there trusts Coach Thompson with their kids, their futures. But this bank, where he's kept his money for over 4 decades, can't trust him to access his own savings. The air conditioning hummed in the silence. Rebecca's face drained of color as realization dawned. This wasn't just about one customer. It was about the bank's reputation in an era where viral videos could shatter corporate facades in minutes. "Here's what's going to happen," Shaq said, his tone shifting from confrontational to resolute. "We're going to help Coach Thompson access his money today, right now. And tomorrow, you're going to review every policy that puts digital convenience above human dignity. Because if you don't," he paused, letting the weight settle, "I'll personally help Coach Thompson transfer every penny to a bank that remembers what community means." The threat resonated beyond his words, in the sea of phones recording outside, in the news vans pulling up to the curb, in the story of a beloved coach denied access to life-saving medication over a smartphone app. Rebecca glanced from her tablet to Walter's passbook to Shaq's towering presence between her and business as usual. The choice crystallized. Corporate policy or human decency, digital progress or moral responsibility. The clock showed 4:47 p.m. Margaret's medication deadline loomed, and in this small bank office, the future of banking itself seemed to hang in the balance. At 4:49 p.m., Rebecca Stevens made a decision that would later fill banking journals and social media case studies. Her fingers trembled as she reached for Walter's passbook. "Let's process your withdrawal now, Coach Thompson," she said, her voice finding its humanity. "Emergency override protocol. I'll take full responsibility." As they processed the transaction, Shaq noticed a photo on the coach's phone, one of the few modern technologies the elderly man had embraced. A faded image from 1985 showed a younger Walter Thompson coaching a lanky teenager who would later play in the NBA. "You coached Marcus Wilson?" Shaq asked, eyebrows rising in recognition. Walter nodded, a brief smile breaking through his worry. "I taught him that skyhook you could never block," he said, the memory momentarily lifting his burden. Shaq's deep laugh filled the office, dissolving the last traces of tension. "Man gave me fits in '96. That was your signature move." By 4:53 p.m., Walter had his funds. He turned to Shaq, eyes glistening. "I don't know how to thank you," his voice thick with emotion. "Margaret, she's all I have left. And this medication." He gripped the bank envelope tightly. Shaq shook Rebecca's hand. "Thank you for doing the right thing," he said, his tone both gracious and weighted. "Sometimes the biggest assists in life happen off the court." Rebecca nodded, genuine warmth replacing her professional mask. As they headed for the exit, Shaq paused at the ATM. Without ceremony, he withdrew cash and pressed it into Walter's hand. The old coach started to protest, but Shaq raised a hand. "Consider it an investment in the Skyhook legacy," he grinned. Miara watched the two men share a final handshake in the fading afternoon light. One towering, one stooped, but both giants in their own ways. Sometimes she realized the biggest victories aren't won with slam dunks, but with simple acts of human dignity. How would you feel if an elderly person was turned away by a clerk just because they struggled with technology? Should the bank have helped Walter verify his account rather than dismissing him? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.